Welcome to the Marketing Behind Rapid Growth, the podcast where we explore the strategies, decisions, and growth engines behind some of the world's most successful technology companies. Today we're talking about Goodreads. Picture this. A founder is standing at a tech conference, half listening to small talk, when a stranger casually describes his company as an SEO site. He brushes it off. He didn't build a search engine. He built a social network for people who love books. But the comment nags at him. That night, he opens his analytics dashboard, and what he finds stops him cold. Roughly 2/3 of his traffic isn't coming from word of mouth or social shares or any campaign he ever ran. It's coming directly from search engines. That founder was Otis Chandler. And that quiet moment of discovery is where our story really begins. Because without fully intending to, Chandler and his co-founder, Elizabeth Curry Chandler, had built something far bigger than a social network. They had built an inbound marketing engine powered entirely by their own users. This is the story of Goodreads, a story about how a community of readers quietly reviewing and cataloging books became the company's single most powerful growth channel. It's a story about engineering virality into a product from day one, and it's also a story about what happens when a beloved platform gets absorbed into a much larger machine. Let's get into it. Part 1. The opportunity hiding in plain sight. To understand why Goodreads worked, you have to understand the environment it was born into. This was the mid-2000s. The internet's attention was locked on massive, general-purpose social networks. MySpace was still dominant. Facebook was rising fast. Everyone in Silicon Valley was chasing scale, chasing the biggest possible audience. Otis Chandler saw something different. He'd spent years as a software engineer and product manager at Tickle.com, a personality testing site, and he'd been watching a pattern play out in an entirely different industry: online dating. Broad dating platforms were steadily bleeding their most engaged users to smaller, hyper-specific sites, niche services built around a particular identity or interest. People didn't just want to connect with anyone. They wanted to connect with people who shared their specific passions. Chandler made a bet. He believed social networking as a whole would follow that same path, away from broad platforms toward focused communities built around real, specific interests. And he had a candidate ready-made for the experiment: books. At the time, book discovery online was frankly broken. You might hear about a novel from a friend, drop it into an Amazon cart, and that was the end of the experience. There was no digital version of browsing a friend's bookshelf, no way to see what someone you trusted was actually reading and what they thought of it. Chandler set out to build exactly that: a platform that digitized word-of-mouth recommendation, a place where human taste, not an algorithm, sat at the center of discovery. That distinction matters enormously, and we'll come back to it, because in a world increasingly run by recommendation engines, Goodreads bet on people. Part 2. Solving the empty room. Every social network faces the same brutal starting problem. Value comes from other people being there, but in the beginning, nobody's there yet. If your product is boring when you're the only user, people leave before the network ever has a chance to form. Marketers sometimes call this the cold start problem. Chandler and his team thought of it more simply: the empty room. Goodreads solved it with what you might call single-player utility. New users weren't asked to wait around for friends to join. They were invited to do something valuable on their own: catalog their reading history, build custom shelves, rate books they'd read years earlier, sometimes decades earlier. That activity delivered real value immediately. A new user could lose an entire afternoon organizing their reading life without a single social connection, without a single friend on the platform. The empty room didn't feel empty because there was something worth doing in it alone. But cataloging was only step one. The real engineering happened underneath it. Chandler brought viral mechanics over from his time at Tickle.com. Goodreads was an early adopter of the address book importer, a feature that let new users instantly see which of their existing contacts were already on the platform rather than manually typing in emails one at a time. The interface itself was designed to surface the value of a network, gently nudging users to add friends whenever their feed felt thin or quiet. This is worth sitting with for a moment, because it's a core strategic idea. Growth wasn't a marketing campaign running alongside the product. Growth was built into the product's architecture. Every new user became, by design, a potential acquisition channel for the next one. Even the name reflects this obsession with removing friction. The site actually launched as Goodreads. spelled with a Z. Chandler recognized that a clean, intuitive, credible domain name meaningfully improves conversion. So he went and acquired the .com spelled with an S. A small decision. One he has since called among the most important he ever made. Part 3. Giving people a reason to come back. Cataloging solved the cold start problem, but it created a new one almost immediately. Once a user finished logging a lifetime of reading, what was left to do? A platform can't grow on a single burst of nostalgic list-making. It needs a rhythm, a reason to open the app again next week and the week after that. Chandler listened to what users were already asking for and leaned into community. That's where groups came in. Digital book clubs, built directly into the platform. These weren't quiet corners of the site. Genre communities accumulated thousands of members debating multiple titles a month, turning what had been a static personal catalog into a living daily destination. Momentum here wasn't purely organic. Elizabeth Curry Chandler's early outreach to her own network helped seed the first wave of activity. And then something happened that no one could have fully planned for. Book bloggers, who had been relying on clunky, outdated web rings to connect with each other, began migrating to Goodreads en masse. Their reviews fed directly into the SEO flywheel Chandler had discovered by accident in his analytics. Every review, every shelf, every rating was another page for search engines to index. Another piece of content answering a real question some reader somewhere was typing into Google. Then came a jolt of visibility. An early feature in Mashable lifted the site from a handful of signups a day to roughly 100. That might sound modest by today's standards, but it was enough to tip the compounding search engine, the discovery loop Chandler had unknowingly built into a self-sustaining cycle. This is the moment where Goodreads stops being just a well-designed product and starts being a genuine growth engine. The content wasn't manufactured by a marketing team. It was generated continuously and authentically by the community itself. Part 4. Turning community data into a business. Every growing platform eventually faces the same uncomfortable question. How do you make money without alienating the very community that got you here? Goodreads found its answer by looking sideways at the publishing industry's own marketing crisis. Traditional publishers concentrated nearly all of their marketing budgets on a small handful of already famous authors. Mid-list writers and debut novelists were left with almost no way to reach readers who might actually love their work. Goodreads turned its community data into a B2B marketing product built specifically for that gap. Author and book launch advertising, targeted not by generic keywords, but by genre and actual reading history. Because the platform knew, with real precision, who read and enjoyed a given kind of book, a publisher could put a new thriller in front of exactly the readers most likely to buy it. Then came a feature that quietly became one of the most valuable signals in publishing, the Want to Read button. It let readers flag books they intended to buy before they'd bought them. That single click gave authors and publishers something they'd never reliably had, a measurable, forward-looking proxy for demand. The clearest illustration of that power is a title you've almost certainly heard of. 50 Shades of Grey. Long before mainstream publishers took any real notice, the book was already gathering enthusiastic reviews and a devoted following inside Goodreads' romance community. That grassroots momentum helped carry a fan fiction-derived novel toward genuinely global mainstream success. At that point, Goodreads wasn't just a catalog anymore. It had become a tastemaker, a place where publishing trends were discovered before the industry itself caught on. Part 5. The Amazon Trade-off. In 2013, Amazon acquired Goodreads. The price was never officially disclosed, though it's widely reported at around $150 million. Strategically, the logic was obvious. Goodreads held an unmatched database of reader preferences and purchase intent, exactly the kind of data that complemented Amazon's retail dominance in books. But acquisitions carry costs that don't show up on the balance sheet right away. Once absorbed into a much larger corporate ecosystem, Goodreads increasingly functioned as a data source and an affiliate sales driver for Amazon, rather than as a product in its own right. Investment slowed. The interface remained frozen in time. The recommendation engine failed to keep pace with what users had come to expect elsewhere on the internet. The more serious damage went deeper than aesthetics. As Goodreads' cultural influence over publishing grew, the platform's investment in moderation did not grow with it. Without robust anti-spam and trust and safety infrastructure, Goodreads became vulnerable to what's now known as review bombing. Authors and rivals learned they could weaponize an easily gamed rating system, sinking a book's reputation before it ever reached shelves. Here's the uncomfortable irony. The same open social mechanics that had powered the platform's rise, the ease of posting a review, the frictionless way reviews spread, became a liability once bad actors learned how to exploit them. For many authors and readers, a beloved community started to feel like contested ground. Part 6. What this story teaches us. So what do we take from the arc of Goodreads, from its rapid rise to its long stretch of stagnation? First, engineer virality into the core experience. Growth cannot be bolted on after the fact. Goodreads embedded address book imports and designed its interface to surface the value of a network, turning every new user into an acquisition channel by default, not by accident. Second, solve the empty room with single-player utility. Network effect products die when early adopters find nothing to do. Cataloging gave users immediate, standalone value, while the network itself quietly reached critical mass in the background. Third, treat user-generated content as a marketing funnel. An engaged community can double as an SEO engine. Authentic human curation captured high-intent search traffic that no keyword campaign could have bought as cheaply or as credibly. Fourth, monetize the niche, not the mass market. Rather than compete with generic ad networks, Goodreads sold access to its own proprietary genre-specific data, offering a genuine lifeline to an industry that had never figured out how to market itself digitally. And fifth, the hardest lesson of all, scale moderation with growth. A platform powerful enough to make or break careers has to invest heavily in trust, safety, and product health. Neglect that, and the very brand equity you spent years building starts to erode. Closing. Goodreads remains a striking paradox today, simultaneously a dated, clunky website and an indispensable fixture of the global publishing industry. Its story suggests that the most successful products rarely win on luck or algorithms alone. They succeed at the intersection of product utility, engineered marketing loops, and human psychology. Otis and Elizabeth Curry Chandler understood something simple but powerful. Readers craved human taste over machine curation, and they wove growth mechanics directly into the interface itself, rather than treating marketing as something separate from the product. The result was something close to a monopoly in reader community, and for builders today, the lesson holds up. Build for the niche. Engineer marketing into the product itself. And never underestimate the compounding power of human connection. This was The Marketing Behind Rapid Growth. See you in the next episode.